All right, hello everyone, Mr. Crozier again. I want to help you with the middle part of side 3 of our unit circle quiz review. In this section, now we are doing the inverse sign. And what does that mean to do an inverse sign? Well, if we have an angle and we do sine, that means we output that ratio. And if we have inverse sign, we are going back to the angle. So that's what we're doing in this whole middle section. We're going back to the angle. So if you want to make a little note of yourself, this whole section is all about giving the angles. All right, so here we go. Inverse sine of negative 1/2. So we know the ratio of sine is negative 1/2. And what is sine? Well, sine's about the opposite side. So the opposite side in the unit circle is negative 1/2. Well, where would that be? Well, it could be right here. It could be this angle here, because that definitely has a sine of negative 1/2. And it could be this angle over here, which could be sine of negative 1/2. Both of these angles produce sine of negative 1/2. However, we have these rules over here, and they're on your reference sheet right here in the middle. That sine is only defined, inverse sine is only defined in these two quadrants. You have to stay within here. That's what this red line is showing. You stay in here. Cosine is only defined in these two angles, and tangent is only defined in these two quadrants. So we're not going to use this angle over here. We can go ahead and just get rid of this whole triangle. It's not going to count, and we're going to have to stay in these quadrants. And what is this angle? Well, that angle is about 330 degrees. We know that. It's 11 pi over 6 if you want to put it in radians. However, you have to name it an inverse sine within these two quadrants. So the only way we're going to stay within these quadrants is to go from 0 down this way. And that's going to be a negative angle. So negative pi over 6, negative 30 degrees. That's that angle that produces that. And I would like you to make sure you label it in radians first and then switch to degrees. Go ahead and do both of them. It's good practice. All right, well, what angle produces this cosine? Well, that would be right there. That's pi over, this is root 2 over 2 right here, and it produces that angle because that's the cosine. So what is that angle? Well, pi over 4 or 45 degrees. And cosine's in these two angles, these two quadrants, so that's good. Where's sine 0 in these two quadrants? Well, if we do this point here, this point is over 1 up 0. Sine is the second value, so it's 0 and 0 degrees. The first one is 0 radians, 0 degrees, same thing. Where is sine pi over, or root 2 over 2? Well, that's in the same quadrant right here. It's the same angle. It's still pi over 4 and 45 degrees. And you'll notice you'll start seeing a lot of the same angles. It's because everything's on the unit circle. There's only a certain amount of angles on the unit circle. All right, where is cosine negative 1? In these two quadrants. Well, cosine, if you remember the points, cosine and sine are here. Well, this is cosine 1. That's not going to work. This is 0, 1. This is cosine 0. And this point over here is negative 1, 0. And right there's our cosine. That's the cosine we want, negative 1. So what angle produces that? Well, what angle is that? Well, that's an angle of pi radians, or 180 degrees. Tangent of 1. Well, where's tangent 1? Well, tangent 1 is when sine and cosine are the same, so it's right here, or it's down here because all students take calculus. Tangents here and here, both 1, both positive. However, tangents only defined in these quadrants. These should be in the -1. And so it's this angle again. And what is that angle again? Well, that angle again is pi over 4. Cosine of 1/2. Well, I'm getting kind of cluttered on my unit circle, so I'm going to use a different color here. Where is cosine 1/2? Well, that's adjacent, so I'm going to use this. It's going to be this tall triangle right here. This tall triangle produces a cosine of 1/2. Can you see it down here? It's just this little side right here. This little side right here is the short side, cosine side, 1/2. What angle is that? Well, that's a third of a pi. Pi over 3, 60 degrees. All right, and probably the hardest one, where is tangent negative 1/3? Well, tangent, these two quadrants, positive up here, so it's negative down here. So we're definitely going to be in this quadrant, but what do I want? I want root 3. Well, how am I going to get root 3? Well, let's see here. Tangent is sine over cosine. And sine value, I'm going to want to be the root 3 over 2. And the cosine, I'm going to want to be the 1/2. Because if it looks like this, these are going to disappear and it's going to be root 3. And we know everything's negative because we're in this quadrant down here. So I want the sine to be the long side and the cosine to be the short side. Well, sine long looks like that, and cosine short looks like that. Long sine, I'll go ahead and write it here for you, root 3 over 2, short cosine. It's going to be that triangle. And what is that? Well, if we define it this way, it's a negative root 3, negative 60. When you're doing these, your calculator, if you type it in correctly, if you have this kind of calculator and you type it in correctly, it will always output what you need. So it's a great way to check it. Make sure you're in degrees. Go second tangent, negative root 3. Make sure you close the parentheses every time and close it all the way. Press enter. It will output the angle for you every time. If you do inverse sine of 0, it will output 0. If you check this one, negative cosine of 1/2, you could even put in, and make sure you close the parentheses, 1/2. It will output there for you. So you can always check them with your calculator. All right, I have one more video. I'm going to do part 3 with you.